Ukrainian drones have shocked NATO. The Ukrainian armed forces have defeated the world's best soldiers. The Swedes have come face to face with the reality of modern warfare, where Kyiv is already setting new rules of engagement. And that's not all. Ukrainian soldiers are now training the world. The alliance bows its head. The West now openly acknowledges that the war of the future is already taking place in Ukraine. So who is really learning now, and how will this affect Moscow's plans? All the details are coming up in just a moment, don't miss it. Greetings, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Solomia Dolik, and here are the latest events. Ukrainian drones have shocked NATO. Even the Swedish army could not resist the experience of the Ukrainian armed forces. While Russia tries to convince the world of its invincibility, Ukrainian soldiers are already teaching NATO armies how to fight in the war of the future. And the results of these exercises have truly shocked the West. Ukrainian drone operators effectively defeated Swedish forces during large-scale NATO military exercises in Sweden. This was reported by the Associated Press. According to the exercise scenario, Sweden found itself under threat of attack from an unnamed state that was amassing troops on the eastern border of the alliance. And it was Ukrainian soldiers who were invited as the main consultants on drone warfare, because today Ukraine has the most extensive combat experience in using drones in a real modern war. During the exercises, the Ukrainians played the role of the aggressor, and what happened next was a cold shower for NATO. A group of Ukrainian drone pilots literally wiped out the Swedish forces during the exercises, and they did it so effectively that it forced the Allies to seriously reconsider their own readiness for modern warfare. 18,000 troops from 11 NATO countries took part in the exercises. But it was the Ukrainians who became the main instructors, because only they have real experience in a full-scale war of the 21st century. The head of the exercises explained just how important Gotland itself is.
Gotland is extremely important because of its location in the middle of the sea. It is often referred to as an unsinkable aircraft carrier. If you gain control over Gotland, you control the Baltic Sea.
And it was here that Ukrainians showed NATO the new reality of the battlefield. Senior officer of the National Guard of Ukraine, Pavlo Storozhuk, stated firmly,
"There are no more concessions in the air. Now we are the ones setting the rules there."
Ukrainian drone operators brought to Sweden the first-hand experience of the fiercest battles in Donetsk, and showed the Allies what has already become routine for us. Modern equipment can be defenseless against these cheap but highly precise drones. Pavlo Storozhuk shared how Ukrainians essentially disrupted NATO's plans during the exercises.
We detected columns from 7 to 8 kilometers away from our positions. There were 4 of us guys. If I had 24 guys, that column wouldn't have even started their engines yet. They would already be burning.
And this sounded like a real wake-up call for the alliance. Because Ukrainians weren't just demonstrating theory, they were showing how it works in a real war against Russia. Moreover, after destroying the vanguard of the equipment, NATO was forced to change the exercise scenario.
We were disrupting their plans. When we destroyed the vanguard of their equipment, they would stop the exercises and replan what to do next.
And now, NATO openly and candidly admits they were late in adapting to drone warfare. General Michael Claesen stated directly, "The West clearly lacked a sense of urgency. And now the alliance is forced to learn significantly faster and more harshly." The main conclusion of Aurora 26 sounds highly symbolic. It is Ukraine that has become the main school of modern warfare for the entire West today. And while Russia tries to intimidate NATO, Ukrainian soldiers are already teaching the alliance how to defeat Putin's army. And while NATO is learning on land how to counter Ukrainian drones, an even more telling story is unfolding at sea. Where just yesterday large ships and traditional fleets dominated, today the rules are set by Ukraine's unmanned systems. During joint naval exercises off the coast of Portugal, Ukrainian forces effectively defeated NATO forces in all 5 simulated scenarios. This was reported by the spokesperson of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Navy, Dmytro Pletenchuk. Ukrainian drones, particularly the Magura unmanned surface vessels, demonstrated such high effectiveness that, under real conditions, a hypothetical alliance frigate would have been destroyed before even detecting the threat. And this is a key point, because some NATO crews simply did not have time to register the appearance of the drones.
Magura was also at one time an excellent game changer in this war in the Black Sea. But the main tasks were carried out precisely by standard means.
At the same time, he confirmed that Ukraine actively participated in the exercises together with its partners and added an important detail.
And our partners were impressed because in developing this program, we got a little ahead of the curve.
Separately, the Ukrainian military presented the Delta Situational Awareness System, and it was this system that became yet another shock for our partners.
In fact, we even outpaced our partners, at least in this particular case.
Essentially, we're talking about a system that is already being used on the front lines and allows for the coordination of combat operations in real time. And against the backdrop of these exercises, it becomes clear Ukraine is not just adapting to the war, it is setting new standards for conducting combat, both on land and at sea. Western media are already stating outright, Ukrainian drone technologies are changing the balance in modern warfare. If previously NATO was preparing Ukraine, now Ukraine is increasingly showing NATO what the war of the future looks like. But the exercises are already coming to an end. The participation of Ukrainian soldiers, the only representatives from outside the alliance, drew particular attention during these exercises. They acted as instructors and demonstrated the experience they gained on the hottest sections of the front, the operation of drones, tactics for their use, and countering enemy UAVs. The exercises revealed the main point. War is changing rapidly, and even technological superiority does not guarantee victory without the right tactics and battlefield experience. A report from the Swedish island of Gotland follows in the next segment.
Modern fighter jets and artillery from Sweden, air defense systems from the USA, and drones from Ukraine.
There are no more concessions in the air. Now we are the ones dictating the rules.
On the island of Gotland in Sweden, 11 NATO allies are training for offense, defense, rapid troop deployment to the east, and coordination in extreme conditions.
Gotland is extremely important because of its location in the middle of the sea. It's known as an unsinkable aircraft carrier. If you hold control of Gotland, you control the Baltic Sea.
The Russians are constantly watching us, and not just with their shadowy fleet. But you know what? We're watching them too.
What are the Russians really capable of in actual combat? NATO members are learning from Ukrainians who are not here as students, as they were at Western training grounds in the early years of the invasion. They are instructors from the hottest zones of the current front line.
We've already reached the level where we're supplying blood to hold our positions while they're still just learning to throw apples and bottles. They get offended, whether they accept it or not, but they listen carefully and take notes.
We are deeply appreciative that they take the time to come here, share their expertise, and assist us in developing our own capabilities in using drones and countering them.
At these exercises, Ukraine is the 12th and the only country that is not a NATO member. The presence of its most experienced drone specialists in Sweden is highly valued by the allies. Here, Ukrainians are teaching NATO what modern warfare is like and how you can use inventions that don't cost billions to crush the enemy without even letting them get close.
The support that Ukrainians provided for the Aurora exercises was truly fantastic, and it was very interesting to see exactly how they use these drones against real-world enemy positions.
From dangerous Donetsk to safe Sweden, Ukrainians brought with them various types of drones. With the help of reconnaissance drones, they clearly demonstrated how difficult it is to hide from these barely visible dots in the sky.
We detected convoys 7 or 8 kilometers away from our positions. Well, we were just 4 guys. If there had been 24 of us, that convoy, they wouldn't have even started their engines before they were already burning, so to speak.
With strike drones, they simulated attacks and destroyed the frontline equipment of the Allies. In doing so, they demonstrated what capabilities Russia would have with the same specialists and technologies. In their development, Ukraine and Russia are trying to outpace each other. There is a theory that the war will be won by whoever prevails in the arms race. There is another theory that this race cannot be won.
We disrupted their plans. They stopped their exercises. When we destroyed, for example, the vanguard of their equipment, we destroyed it. They stopped the exercises, replanned what to do next, and then continued the exercises.
When you conduct bold training, you train up to the point of failure. We need to apply this approach in order to learn faster and harder. You are forced to learn very quickly, and you have strong motivation to do so. It seems to me that to some extent there was a lack of a sense of urgency in the West.
Vulnerability to drones is one of the conclusions of the Aurora exercises, which are coming to an end, and one of the biggest challenges for the West that must be overcome, acknowledges the Swedish military command. They add that to address this, it is necessary to learn quickly, train, cooperate with defense companies, and scale up drone production. After all, they believe that Russia will not wind down its own efforts, even if it stops firing in Ukraine.
If there is a ceasefire or a peace agreement with Ukraine, I think Russia will be able to shift its focus quite quickly and could pose a real threat to one of the NATO member countries.
At the same time, both Ukrainian and Western military officials note that drones cannot replace traditional weaponry or manpower needed for an offensive. Drones are just one part of the overall arsenal necessary to deter the enemy. And here, as Secretary General Mark Rutte emphasizes, NATO has a significant advantage over Russia thanks to the combined capabilities of its allies. From Gotland, Zoriana Stepanenko, Marek Hajduk, Radio Liberty. Especially for TSN 1+1 Marathon United News.
Underground, there is an entire city almost half a kilometer long. Ukrainian paratroopers have built a large-scale shelter right on the front line, which has become not only a living space but also a fully functional military base. Everything is here, a place to rest, warehouses, repair zones, as well as covered parking for cars and even trucks. The size of this underground complex impressed even representatives of NATO countries who visited the positions. The military note that in modern warfare, where the sky is controlled by drones, such shelters are not an exception but a necessary condition for survival on the front line. The scale of this shelter is shown further in the video.
This is the Kramatorsk direction.
All of the enemy's personnel in this area are either eliminated or already classified as 300th.
These are Slobozansky paratroopers. The enemy is trying to bypass their positions and avoids frontal assaults in this area.
Offensive potential has decreased. Some of the enemy was destroyed, driven out. Now they are trying, so to speak, to infiltrate, to slip between our combat positions.
The Russians control all the roads and intersections with drones, including strike drones.
Here, the whole entire area from Zakypne past Siversk all the way to Bilohorivka, there are a very large number of them.
Together with the soldiers, we are looking at the front line on the outskirts of Siversk, which is already occupied by the enemy. To monitor every movement there, our paratroopers' drones are in the sky around the clock. And to do this safely, they themselves are deep underground. This is one of the largest shelters that exists on the front line. And not only do people live and work here, but even massive cargo trucks can fit inside. Next to it is an underground parking lot for military pickups. The vehicles are also deliberately hidden underground.
The paratroopers show us the underground. They have much to be proud of. A whole army town is underground here.
Banuya, enjoy everyone.
Good day.
Congratulations.
With communications, water, sewers, sleeping places, and even a dining room. What do soldiers eat?
Cheese soup.
They are cooking here. This is the kitchen, says Chef Maxim, and it's no worse than a professional one.
We don't feel like we're underground. Only when we go outside do we feel it.
Maxim got involved in planning this kitchen back when it was still being built, so that it would be just as comfortable as at his civilian job in a restaurant. Did you ever think you would be working in an underground kitchen?
No, I never thought so.
Do you really feel safe here?
Safer than above ground.
Is this a shelter or a small tunnel with branches divided into different rooms and offices? Our journalist's camera actually can't fully convey the impressive scale of the underground area, reinforced with thick wood. And even the paratroopers themselves can hardly determine how many meters these corridors are in length or how deep we are underground. How deep are we?
1.52 meters.
How deep are we underground?
4 meters.
So we decided to conduct a small experiment. In fact, such shelters are exactly what is needed on the front line right now to protect against enemy drones. It's so incredibly extensive, the soldiers say, stretching for as much as 200 meters, that we really want to show you exactly how long it takes to get from the very beginning to the other exit of this underground tunnel. So, I'll start the timer for this right now, and we'll go by it as we walk. There are no signs here except for reminders that using mobile phones is prohibited. So it's easy to get lost because the underground is built like a labyrinth. In fact, as you can see, the entire infrastructure is underground. A huge, incredibly long corridor. And this is not a coincidence, but an engineering solution. If a missile or a glide bomb destroys part of the shelter, the other part must withstand it, the soldiers say. Here we've reached another, opposite exit. We can press stop here. It actually took me 2 minutes and 40 seconds to slowly walk all the way through the entire length of this long corridor. You could even go for a run here, the paratroopers joke, especially if you've been sitting too long in front of the screens while managing the battle. But the soldiers went even further and set up a gym because they don't go outside for weeks at a time.
We try to find some free time for at least some basic physical exercises, some daily physical activity, because it's sedentary work, constantly in the exact same place.
This underground facility on the front line is already a necessity at this stage of the war, and with drones dominating outside, say the defense forces. Because the occupiers use their attack drones to hunt both infantry shelters and command posts, especially now when the drone strike zone has expanded by dozens of kilometers compared to last year's war.
Currently, the gray zone stretches out for 30 kilometers, 15 from our side and 15 from theirs, or even more in some directions.
This isn't the largest shelter the paratroopers have, but even this underground facility impressed guests from NATO member countries who have already visited here. Currently, neighboring countries are only analyzing the confrontation in the drone war. Our soldiers are already finding ways to surpass the enemy in it. This is Rocky the dog, and this is his owner. Do you feel safe here?
I think so, yes.
And so does he. While we were being given a tour of the underground city, above ground, our drones kept working and spotted a good target.
They spotted a firing cannon and a truck unloading ammunition. That's a rarity these days.
Yulia Hrienko, Alexander Shian, Ole Mostovi, TSN 1+1, Marathon United News.
And during these exercises, it becomes clear once again, modern warfare is defined not by the number of troops, but by the precision of strikes and the technologies that are changing the rules of the game right before our eyes. It's about this kind of weapon, which has become a symbol of precision and fear for the enemy, that we'll talk about next in the story.
This is a day at the front that lifts your spirits. Our aviation is in the sky. And on the ground, HIMARS. And on the ground, HIMARS, returning from a mission.
After firing, you really need to vacate the area quickly.
It is reliably tucked away in a shelter. And from the satisfied faces of its crew, you can tell the mission was an absolute success.
The assessment is excellent.
But we are still waiting for another launch because this system can strike from a very long distance.
As far as 80 kilometers.
But we need to wait for a target. This is the rocket system that turned the tide of the war in 2022. The first HIMARS hit the front in summer and panicked the enemy. This footage is now history. Truly spectacular launches and remarkably impressive outcomes and results. Only a handful of short months after appearing in Ukraine, HIMARS actually inspired its very own line of merchandise, watches and postage stamps. And now that it is the year 2026, it is once again fully loaded and ready for battle. The Russians, full of hatred, called it the Chimera, but the crew of the 148th Separate Artillery Brigade even came up with a cute and chubby nickname for it.
Hamster. Well, then you can call it whatever you like. The most important thing is that it does its job.
The rockets here can be quite different.
Here the caliber doesn't matter. What matters is that it hits the target.
This HIMARS crew used to work with Grads.
And compared to the Grad, this is the major league in terms of firing accuracy and overall performance. But it's more effective, much more effective.
And the driver used to drive Kraz and Kamaz trucks and has already noticed the difference. The cabin is armored, so visibility is reduced, but it's much safer.
The vehicle is new, it's great, and there are no complaints about it. It drives reliably, especially off-road. There are some nuances, as with any equipment, but the vehicle is good. It's a great source of pride to drive it.
And right now the crew has a different new target. Next, they have to act very quickly. Drive out into the field far from the front line, constantly monitoring enemy drones.
The sky is clear at the moment.
Right now, several $1 million worth of equipment is standing in a field in Zaporizhzhia, getting ready to strike at the Russian occupiers and to aim at the required coordinates. Of course, we'll only have one shot, but believe me, this shot will be incredibly loud and accurate. This is the first time I've ever seen a HIMARS launch from such a close distance. It's truly the first time in my life I've seen a HIMARS fire. The platoon commander with the call sign Craft shares his feelings with us.
Mostly it's a feeling of duty fulfilled. The rocket is away. We're anxiously awaiting the official report regarding the final outcome, and hoping the enemy will be completely and utterly defeated.
In fact, He is a designer and an artist.
Life before, specifically before the HIMARS, did not prepare us for this.
And together we dream of a day when fighting is no longer needed.
I hope that one day in the distant future they will finally retire, and we will steadily move forward into the future and passionately continue doing exactly what our hearts are drawn to. And I truly hope that there will be far less weaponry and military conflict in the world to come. But right now,
We need more.
I hope there will be more of it.
And then we'll call Kraft by his real name. And he'll take his powerful HIMARS and carefully paint it for the local museum.
I probably wouldn't paint any flowers or anything like that on the HIMARS. In all likelihood, I'd choose to decorate the HIMARS in some ultra-modern neon colors, but only with whatever paint was still remaining in the workshop. The rocket pod would be a shade of light green, while the cab would be painted a bright orange.
Of course, we have to wait for that time, but we really want to have exactly this kind of plan for the future. Will you invite us to film our story?
Yes, I hope so. I hope so, yes.
Natalia Nahorna, Alexander Shian, and Anatoly Korop, TSN 1+1, United News Marathon.
And how do you feel about such events? Write your opinion in the comments. Click the like button under the video and stay up to date with the main news. Today, Ukraine is following the most relevant news and informing you first. So see you in the next story.